Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today we're back on with the little joystick, update and modernisation of this. If you remember in the previous video, basically we pulled this thing apart and we did a really good internal clean on all of it, and we got it working. We give all the plastics a clean, made it as nice as we can, so it is in really nice condition, this joystick. And in this excuse me, in this video what I thought we'd do is have a look at what I'm going to use to convert this to USB. Now, people have said, why don't I just have the stick like that and use one of them Atari to USB converters you can buy? And yeah, I mean, if you wanted to use this stick for both emulation and for work on to use on original hardware, then that'd be a great solution. If you had one of these sticks and you wanted to play with it on a PC and you wanted to play with it on original hardware, then yeah, that's your absolute best solution, is one of them little converters. And you just plug your joystick in, and it's got USB on the end. You plug it into your laptop or whatever, and away you go. But the guy that I'm doing this for, he doesn't use old vintage hardware. All he uses is this, and he said he would rather have the USB capability built into the actual joystick rather than an extra plug-in unit. So that's the main reason why we're actually doing this as a full conversion, and we're actually going to have the USB coming out of the actual joystick itself. I'm still I know he said he would prefer having a little USB type socket on the back there. I'm still not 100% sure whether that is going to be really practical yet. What we may end up doing is removing one of these and using the other one and bringing a USB cable out. I'm not 100% sure yet. That'll be in a separate video. This video is more on what I'm going to be using to actually get the USB working, and that, like I said, I've shown it in the other video, is this thing here. And these are dirt cheap. Listen, literally they're about £2.50 delivered from China, I think. I'm sure that they're not much any more expensive than that. And they're not bad actually for what they cost. If you need like a Super Nintendo controller for your emulation, yeah, they look like the Japanese Super Famicom controller. They're kind of like a copy of that rather than a Super Nintendo controller, but they have all the buttons that we're going to need. And what I've done, this is Fusion. I don't really do a lot with emulation. I've just downloaded. I've got a Sega emulator on my main laptop, but just for playing about, this is just basically my workshop laptop. It's an old netbook. This has been all over the world with me. I think I paid like 10 or 15 quid for it on eBay, but only because it's got a piece of plastic broken out of it there, so it was dirt cheap. It was literally bought. I've been around Italy. It's been around China. It's been around most of Europe, I think. And it's basically the only reason I have it is that if it got broken while it was on the trip, so what? It didn't cost anything. It doesn't matter. But now it's just a great little laptop for having in the workshop. It dual boots Windows 7 and it dual boots Puppy Linux. So it's, like I said, it's quite nice and useful. I've got it running Windows 7 here. Like I said, I've got this Fusion Sega emulator. I think it'll emulate most Sega systems. And I've just connected this up just to show you how good this is to work. I've got, basically on this, I don't know what emulation software the guy uses actually, but on this it's really quite good. We'll go up to options, set config. We can just set it up basically as a USB gamepad, and this is set up as a 3-button USB gamepad, so it basically works exactly like an original Sega controller, and it's all definable. You can literally go through, you can hit define, and you can press left and it selects what button for left, right, up, down, 1, 2, 3, 4, and lots of other different features. So this controller, being it has extra buttons on it, we should be able to use some of the other buttons on that controller, like the switches, to actually possibly do things. Like I said, not necessarily in this emulator, but certainly have some functionality out of them. So I'll just click off that. I'll just show you it working. So we press start. I died then, but never mind. It's been working again. As we can see, there's no latency on it at all. That's the other. Yeah. I'm trying to think which buttons I set up for the 3 jump button. One. But this is instantaneous. You know, there's no lag on any of the buttons. You look up, look down, left and right. So yeah, now we've proved that this controller will be suitable. We can unplug that. We can get rid of the laptop now, I think I should have shut that off before I shut that down, because the music will keep playing. I think we may end up with some background music for the rest of the... Oh, there we go. No, I've got it off now. Let's move that out of the way. And let's get into this thing here now. I'll get you down and bring you a bit closer. Right, what we'll do is we'll open this up and we'll have a look inside it and see whether this is indeed going to be suitable for what we want. Now, I expect to find a cob in this, which is a chip on board. So basically it has a little IC which is glued down to the PCB, and then a glob of plastic is stuck over the top of it to protect it. It's like the cheapest way of making an IC, and for really cheap products like this, it's basically how they do it. That's what I'm expecting to find in here anyway. So, what have we got? We've got... Let's get this out of here. Yeah, and that's exactly what we've got. We look on here. Those are our extra buttons. That is the glob. That's the one that we've got to be mindful of, because that's basically the bit we need. So what the plan here is going to be basically we're going to try and trim this board down, so we don't need... I don't know actually. It's not very big, that. What we might do is desolder them two there, because we don't need them. And we can literally use these as solder pads to take the wires that we're going to run off to the other parts. Yeah, that's going to work quite nicely, I think. Just make sure we've got this in the right position. Now there are all the buttons, and those are the for the D-pad. So we've got a common, and then we've got left, right, up and down, all going back to that chip on board there. And I think we can do right. What I think we can do with this, because it's not too big, like I said, we'll desolder them because we don't need them. At least we don't need them for now. So just whip them off the board. We'll keep them because they may come in handy for something else in the future. There's a capacitor there. I presume that's probably needed for something. Do I cut this board right down, and then but them traces are rather close together to actually solder to? I think we're going to use the board pretty much as is. Let's just get that bit of bridge 2 connections there when I took that off, so let's just clean that up. There we go. Come on, off you come. There we go. Is that still... Don't want to bridge them up, because if we do, it'll be as though that button's being pressed all the time. There we go. There we go. That's better. I'm happy with that now. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to solder wires to all them there, to the start button there, so we'll need that, and to 3 of them there. In fact, and what other buttons have we got on here? We've got the slow motion button. We can use that perhaps to do another one of them. Then we've got the turbo fire button there, so that we can use one of them top 2 there. Then possibly the player 1, player 2 button, although I'm not 100% sure if I'll be able to do anything with that, because it uses that great big long switch and it's like a mode switch. But we'll try. First thing we need to do is get this soldered up so we can actually use it. And we'll use my old favourite here. I've got plenty of this hook-up wire. And cut some nice long lines. We'll cut these deliberately long. So we can always cut these down at a later date when we actually start fitting them into the Sega controller. We just want something to work with now. That's 5 that we need. We'll use this place here to get our ground connection. So we'll take the first wire. Tin this up. Like that. Let's just tin the wire up. So that's the ground. In fact, what we need to do really is label these wires up so we know exactly what we've got, and that'll be make life a lot easier when we. Oops, excuse me. I'm just gonna have to move you a second while I get into my drawer. There we go. That's what we want. And a bit of tape. This saves a lot of hassle later on. And we do. Oops, that's too much. I'll just put a bit of tape around the end like that. Just right on G and D. And then that button there is going to be left. Oh, well, it's A left, A right, A down and A up. So that makes life even easier for us. solder. Again, add a little bit of solder to the wire. Like that. I'll solder that on. In fact, you don't need to see me solder all these wires on, so just join me back in a minute when I've got all the rest of these soldered into position. Okay, and I'm back. As we can see, I've completed that task. I've got all my wires soldered on here. Now what I've done, I've used all the same colour wire because basically I've got lots and lots of it, and it won't really matter. They're all switch wires. There's nothing live here really. There's nothing that I could get mixed up and it cause a major issue, I don't think. Although I don't really like to shot like left and right together, mainly because I may damage that chip there, and I really don't want to do that. But basically what we've got is we've got one common ground here, and I put a little label, a little flag on every wire because basically I put some cable ties to keep it all nice and neat so my soldering doesn't get damaged or nothing gets flexed or bent. And this is actually neat and tidy and quite solid, done like that. But because I've done that, and obviously then you can't pull wires to identify them, I've put a little flag like that on each wire just to say what it does. And I think the next thing we should do is test this board now and just make sure it actually does still works the joystick before we go any further. So I've got the old Mega Drive emulator set back up again here. And we'll plug the joystick back in. Well, when I say joystick, the PCB. We'll plug the PCB back in, if I can figure out which way around this USB connector is. I'm trying to plug the USB into the old modem port. That'll never work. Let's try it in a USB socket. There we go. So we've got the controller connected back up to the laptop. Now hopefully, what we should be able to do is if we take this ground connection, which is the one here, and we take this wire, which has got ST on it, which goes to the start button on the controller, and we touch these together, it should make the game start. So let's see if that works. We got that working. Well, hang on. In fact, have I even? Because I reset the game, so I wonder if I actually just need to quickly reset this in the options. Set config. Yeah, we lost the thing. So let's go to controllers. Yeah, it's set to keyboard if you look there. Use keyboard. So let's change that. In fact, let's change 6-button pad. No, it should be a 3-button pad. Now why won't it? It's not coming up. Try and plug in that and plugging it back in. Perhaps we got it a bit confused. I wonder if it has to. I wonder if the software has to load and then load it. I don't know. Let's try this. Let's let's rerun the emulator because I didn't have it actually plugged in when I did do that. So let's load. Let's go to options, set config, controllers. Let's have a look with it all. There we go. USB gamepad. We've got it this time. Let's select USB gamepad. Apply. Okay. Now let's go to File. Load Genesis game. We've got Sonic the Hedgehog. Right, that's loaded there. Now let's try it again. Let's see whether let's see. We've got the ground connection there, and we've got start here. So we touch these two together this time. Hopefully the game should start. Did that work? Where is it on to? Oh, that's not good. Let's see if we need to configure it in the software. Set config. Controllers. Let's try define. Then it's a press button direction on keyboard for up. Right, so let's go see if we can go through the configuration. If we can go through the configuration, then we know it's going to work. So let's look for up. So we've got ground and up here. Let's touch them two together. And that worked, because I saw it change there. And let's try down. So maybe we just have to configure it all. I obviously didn't save anything when I was fiddling about with it before. This should be down. Then we want left. And then we want right. And we want button A, which we'll use 1 for. Button B we'll use 2 for. Button C we'll use 3 for. Oops. Well, that one doesn't seem to be. Button 3. I don't know why that one's not working. Let's try button 4. Button 4 worked. Right, let's try start. So start's worked. Button X, let's try 5. Button Y, we can try. Okay. Hopefully that should have done it this time. So let's try. So we take ground again, which is there, and we take start, which is ST. We touch them two together. Hopefully the game should start. Is that starting? There we go. I think that's right this time. Right, we'll know if we go right, if we touch right and he moves right, which he does, and then left to move him left, which he moves left. Let's see if he looks down. Yes, he looks down. Let's see if he looks up. Yes, he looks up. And let's see if we can get him to jump. This should be jump 1. Which he does. Should be jump 2. Which he does. Should be jump 3. That one jump 3. Or was this one jump 3? Oh, sorry, that's jump 3. There we go. So yeah, that does indeed appear to work quite well. So basically, we have all our USB control for the joystick conversion there. So we have a common ground, and then we have all them are up, down, left, and right, and ground, and then we have our start, select 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So we've got 4 and 5 as well, which we probably won't use, or we will connect them to some other switches, some of them latching switches. But basically we've got all our fire buttons there, and our select and start, and we have our directions up, down, left and right there, and that does all work now, and that works quite nicely. So in the next part of this video, we'll be taking this controller and we'll be installing this board in there and find a nice place for it to install, and we'll be wiring. That's one of the reasons why I've done the wires nice and long like this, is because obviously we can cut them down. They're all flagged, so we can mount this in position in the actual controller, and then we can run these wires as neat as we possibly can, and we're going to make this super neat inside to where they need to go, and they can be soldered in position. And then let's say I'm still undecided how we're going to terminate this, whether we're going to put a USB on the back here, which I don't know whether it's going to look right. I don't know whether I can put a USB, unless I use perhaps like the old USB, was it the B? The square one. I might be able to fit one of them in, but then again, you're then struggling with cables. I might speak to him and see about perhaps just using this cable. I might just use this cable for the initial for now, just to get this up and working on the USB, and then look at possibly adding a socket if it's indeed possible. But that's going to be for the next video. So actually in the next video we'll be installing this board into this controller and actually getting the controller to work with the Mega Drive emulator, and then we'll take it from there. So I'm going to leave this here for now for today. So I hope you enjoyed that little update on this. Thanks for watching and goodbye.